In the wake of the 68 experiences, I think, generally speaking, people began to look inward more as opposed to outward. I think there was a lot of learning about state repression and programs like COINTELPRO and what kinds of things they were in, and knowing who your friends and allies are and knowing more about them. I think this caused people to begin to want to be more rooted in their local context, kind of piggybacking on what Mike said, that you have to know the local context, that you have to have a local basis from which to operate. I think there was also a lull in a lot of the activism that was present in 1968. I want to talk a little bit about the Latino experience post-68, because it's significant. As the Latino population in Chicago, for example, grew, I think 68 was a provocative time that caused many of us to kind of ask who we were in U.S. society. There was a search for identity and for belonging in U.S. society. I think many young people in Chicago connected with the United Farm Worker cause of justice for farm workers. We learned to picket and to boycott and to engage in that type of organizing. Those movements brought the concept of protest to the neighborhood, and that was important. It's a real experience to, get up and hold up a picket sign and walk and to shout and to pass flyers out and to urge people to join you. It is a life-changing experience. Some young people connected with the Chicano movement, which was more of a Southwestern expression, not that strong in Chicago, still important, and it also helped create chapters of the Brown Berets, sort of the equivalent of the Black Panther Party, its earlier predecessor, I would say. And then, of course, many were allured by the experience of the Young Lords as they came to learn more about them, and especially of their efforts to bring health care to the neighborhood. They were the pioneers in the campaign to rid the city of lead paint and lead abatement. So in terms of public health, that's one of the great contributions that Cha-Cha and the Young Lords made to Chicago public health and well-being. Student groups also sought to stay rooted in their communities. There were community struggles here at the university that pressed the University of Illinois at Chicago to create a Latin American Studies program to increase the number of Latina students at the university, to hire more faculty at the university. And there's always been an effort to keep a strong connection to community and neighborhood. The 70s also saw the creation of many theater groups, popular theater groups in the community that would depict the reality and what to do in terms of the challenge and how to organize and how to create movement. It also helped create organizations like Gazaslan in the Pilsen community and other community organizations, and it also led to the creation of a very progressive organization in Chicago that was the first to defend the rights of the undocumented in Chicago and nationally. GASA, General Brotherhood of Workers. I was a student when I became affiliated with this organization. So this was a part of what was going on. There was the Crusade for Justice in the Southwest, other movements against the war in LA and in California. I want to bring it back home to what we've learned since then. The context has changed significantly. The issue of police brutality, especially in the Black community, really raised political awareness in Chicago and helped mobilize the Black community for empowerment, for self-respect. There was a confluence with the movement for independent political action and organizations in Chicago more rooted. There was an effort to create an alliance between the Black and the Latino community in Chicago, the creation of independent political organizations that began on the New York West Side and on the Northwest Side of Chicago. Cha-Cha played a role in that part. Mary Scott Boria has been a part of those initiatives as well. And generally, independents defined their politics, those who were doing grassroots electoral politics, and it doesn't mean everyone, of course. Some remained anti-electoral. The things that united progressives were anti-corruption positions about Chicago politics, the rejection of sexism and the exclusion of women from politics and from government, and a position against racism. In other words, politics in Chicago has discriminated particularly Latino and African American communities. Through the championing of the Voting Rights Act, the communities became empowered, coinciding with the election of Harold Washington, who had amended the Voting Rights Act in Chicago. This was the beginning of a new type of politics in Chicago that gave us the most diverse and representative cabinet in the city's history. Women benefited greatly during that administration, but it was also a time of empowerment for the city's new majorities that were people of color, Black and brown. There was also a global perspective about the world as progressives participated in the anti-apartheid movement, as we mobilized against U.S. military intervention in Central America and the Caribbean, and against the Iraq War, and against the war machine in general, which we continue to be very vigilant against because of the guy that occupies the White House today. There have also been, over the past 5 years, new social movements that have the potential to mobilize sectors of people who have not been engaged or mobilized in electoral activity. These include groups like Black Lives Matter and Asata's Daughters. The Bernie Sanders campaign was another important force in raising awareness and consciousness that helped create new groups like Indivisible and other political formations of people who are about getting rid of Citizens United, getting big money out of politics, running, having young people run for office, and going against what has been the mainstream of the Democratic Party. At a meeting here over the weekend, the Democratic Party finally gave in to a recommendation, a fight that the Bernie Sanders delegates initiated in Philadelphia in 2016, and that is to rid the party of most of its superdelegates, causing it to be more rooted in the grassroots, and of course ending caucuses in many states, which oblige one to be present when decisions about primaries are made. I think in general, people are finding that the basis of greater unity and a bigger united front for people's interests lie in advancing equity agendas at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level, as we try to take back the Congress, win the majority, and of course lay the terrain for getting rid of the occupant of the White House and moving the country in a more progressive direction.
Amazing, Chuy.